Welcome to Needy and Normal. I'm your host, Ashley Levering, mom, wife, and life coach. After hours of coaching and learning from my own life, one thing is clear: meeting your needs is essential for a better life. Here, we'll talk about your needs and not only learn to accept them, but also tend to them without guilt. Let's get needy. Welcome to a pretty exciting episode of Needy and Normal. The person I get to talk to is someone I absolutely adore. I get to call her my friend. I get to call her when I'm having a hard time during baseball season. This is my friend, Paige. Paige, thank
Hello,
you for
hello.
doing this with me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I think I asked you right after I told you that I was going to have a podcast that you had to be a guest. So thank you. And we're doing it.
Yeah, we're
Finally,
here. We're
we're
here.
here.
You made it happen. That's so exciting.
Mm, thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. Okay, as this is going to air, we are entering into baseball season. And so it felt appropriate to have a conversation about what it's like to live the baseball life as women, basically married to the game, and as moms, right? Because we both have two kids. They're close. Well, they're not too far apart in age, but
Yeah.
they have busy lives being kids with activities. And so we're going to talk about what it's like to survive baseball season and what we need and what it's like to not take care of those needs and what it's like to actually take care of those needs. I mean, there's going to be so much learning because we've both been in this for a long time, Paige longer than me. So before we really get into all this juicy stuff, Paige, can you tell people how we know each other and how your life is the baseball life?
Yeah. So we met, I want to say it's been what, like 3 years now? 3 years, 4 years? Um,
Yeah,
yeah, it was like COVID, I feel like.
and probably.
So I am a part of an organization called Our Baseball Life. And we are three women who are married to former professional baseball players. And we've co-founded together this organization that sort of helps families, players, girlfriends, wives, kids, whatever, navigate the baseball life because it is kind of chaotic, kind of crazy. And it just takes a little bit of community and a little bit of friendship to get through it because there's some tough stuff, some great stuff, but some tough stuff that goes on. And so we resource people and help people sort of navigate the life. Um, and so Ashley came to us and we did like a whole seminar. Remember, we did like a whole seminar, um, and just had this entire, I feel like it was like a Zoom, and we did this whole class basically, where we talked about, the life and just what it's like and all the different things that come with it. And you kind of led us through a pretty cool little seminar. I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah, I don't
um,
know. It was kind of a workshop.
yeah, it was a workshop. That's a good way
Yeah,
to describe it.
it was
Um,
can you relate? Everyone was there with the
yes,
same
yes.
challenges.
It's about, yeah, relating to different things that we all go through. And so that was really cool. And you and I had a few conversations and we just sort of really clicked. And I remember you said you were talking about, because that was like when the book Girl Wash Your Face was like super popular, and you were talking about that, and I was like, oh my god, I hate washing my face. I'm terrible at routines. Like, why am I like this? I don't take out my contacts, I sleep in my makeup, I am the like least, I don't take care of myself like I need to. And that book just like really irked me because I'm like, no, I'm not going to wash my face. And so I remember saying to you, like, teach me how to like be better, like teach me how to have, a routine and like self-care and all of this stuff. And so we talked, and then yeah, I ended up doing some coaching sessions with you, and then we just became good friends. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's been
I remember the conversation we had. We're like, I know that we did the coaching thing together, but do you think we can cross over and do the friend thing?
yeah, we're like, can we just be friends now? Is that like, the coaching was great, but like I was like, yeah, can we just be friends? Because I feel like we just sort of see each other on the same plane. And
Hmm.
um I don't know, our brains click in some crazy way that just makes sense. And yeah, so we've just been friends now ever since. And we've only ever met once in person, which is so crazy. We spent a weekend in a hotel room together in Chicago and had so much fun. But yeah, it's been our little friendship journey.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's the story.
I can't remember what you said, but it was just perfect. Like we had never looked at each other live in person, and
Yeah,
we slept in the same bedroom in the same
right.
hotel room
It
for
was
3 nights.
awesome. We had
We
so
had a
much fun.
blast.
We
I
went to
know.
great restaurants and we went to a spa that was amazing. And yeah,
Mhm.
we had a good time. You made me go on a roof and I was terrified.
I did. Come on. I like to push people to go out of their comfort
It was a
zone.
good time. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of where we've been. And just, doing the baseball thing and sort of, you've got this unique journey with baseball that's just slightly different than what like maybe a player's wife or a coach's wife would go through. But all in all, it's like the same scenario where your husband's gone all the time and our husbands are, gone all the time. And so it's, I feel like we connected through that.
So that's a good point, though. Part of the reason why we're here talking about this is for you to bring us through your journey, because even though mine is similar, one of our biggest differences, and a lot of people don't know this, is that you had moved around. You would, not be able to stay in one location all year. I remember one of the questions I got when we first came to Milwaukee was, do you guys live here full time, like all year? And that's a question that goes out to players and players' families all the time, whereas we get to stay put. My family and, Jeff, technically, we get to stay here in Milwaukee year round, whereas we're not flying off to go to wherever city he plays or works because
Right.
he's a broadcaster and this is just the city we're in. And when he does stuff in the off season, this is still home base no matter what. So, but for you, I remember learning about your journey. You guys were all over the place because your husband, you can tell us, is Donnie Murphy, and he's
Yeah.
been all over the place. So tell
Yeah.
us about
So
your perspective.
we started dating when I was 18 and he was 20 or 21. And basically I didn't travel much for the first couple years that we were dating, but essentially he played everywhere. He was in the minor leagues. And so he played everywhere. And I got to a point a couple years in, by the time we were engaged, where I just traveled everywhere that he went. So, I mean, like we were in Delaware, we were in Kansas, we were in California, we were in Florida, Texas, Ohio, Kentucky. I mean, literally packed up and moved 100 different times to a million different cities for baseball. And he did it for 14 seasons, up and down in the majors, in the minors, just kind of all over the place, and had kids and did it with kids. And now he is a coach. This is his 8th season with the Blue Jays. He's going to be in AAA this year in Buffalo, New York. And we're sort of just now transitioning out of that constant travel, constant, going life. Our kids are older now. My son is 13, my daughter's 7. And so we don't travel quite as much. But yeah, I mean, I spent the better part of, you know, close to 20 years just picking up and moving every which way wherever baseball took us. And sometimes with babies and doing all of the things wherever we needed to go. So that was basically our life up until the last couple of years when our kids were um, getting a little older and needing to kind of be more at home. So now we're sort of transitioning into that era of staying home a bit more.
And that means you go longer periods of time where it's just you
Right.
taking care of life. So,
Yeah.
okay, this
So
is a long time
yeah,
coming.
he'll leave in February for spring training. Like he left early February, and then doesn't come back until September or October. And we sort of don't go to wherever he is until the summertime, um, because of school and because of life and sports and kids and all the things. And I work also. So I have I guess it's a full-time job. I mean, I work like 35 hours a week, so close enough. Um, so yeah, we don't quite travel as often, but we go these huge spurts of time where I am just solo parenting, you know, on my own, um, and working on top of that.
So
So
you're totally not busy at all.
no, not at all. There's
Not at
no
all.
stress whatsoever.
Oh my
I have no
gosh.
dishes in my sink and no laundry to do. And yeah, just, living the dream.
Wouldn't that be great? I my first complaints when Jeff leaves for spring training, because that's our longest jaunt when he's fully just not here, is I have to make my own coffee and I have to get the mail.
Yeah.
Like, what is this all about?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think and obviously it's different in every scenario, but yeah, there's adjustments to be had twice.
Hmm.
Like we do this twice a year where he leaves and then he comes back, and it's an adjustment every single time for each thing, and it's like the kids are in a different zone every time also because they're obviously growing, getting older and changing. And so yeah, it is a I don't know, it's a learning experience every single time.
But
But
see, you've been learning this for years and how to, and granted things change, but you've been learning your best practices basically. Can you pinpoint when you felt like, okay, I have a system in place. I can push that on button. Here we
yeah.
go. I know
Oh, I
exactly
think
what I
that
need to do.
started I think that started such a long time ago. Like it started the minute that I started traveling full time. Because you don't have the luxury when you're doing this and they're playing and they're going to the field, at noon every day and they're not coming home until midnight every night. You don't have the luxury of having someone there to be like, here's what we're going to do. They're gone, they're busy, and they are fully committed and paying all their attention and focus to you know baseball and like succeeding and getting to where they want to go. And it doesn't mean that they're not helpful, it doesn't mean that they're not like your partner, but it just means that you're on your own a lot. And so I think I really learned how to just sort of take the reins and start making decisions really early on, which then once we had kids, it became this thing of like, well, no one's here to save me. No one's coming. I'm by myself in a city that I've never lived in. I don't have family in. I might know a girl or two. I might not know anyone because it's a new team, but no one's coming to save me. And so I have to take the reins, make decisions, figure out what we need, where we need to go, and how this is going to work out. And so I think that started super early, when I was probably 20. And once we had our first, we had Liam when, let's see, Donnie was with the Marlins. So it was like 2011. And yeah, I just sort of already had been in it for I guess 5 or 6 years by then. And you just make it happen. They're not there. So you're like, okay, what does this baby need? Like, what do I have to do? Where's the game at today? What's our schedule like today? And you just sort of do it because they need you, they rely on you, and you need to take care of yourself too, as much as
Oh yeah.
possible.
How'd
So,
you do that?
well, I
I
mean,
mean,
that's
this
it.
sounds
You
like
sort of
survival
don't.
mode.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
sort of don't at certain points. I
Yeah.
think I spent a lot of years not doing it. I was, elbows deep in being a mom and not knowing what the heck I was doing there. Um, but you do, it's sort of a combination of like survival mode, and if you have friends on the team, like I did have a lot of help from girls on the team at the time. We had been with them for 3 years. And so I was able to sort of lean on some of them. Family did come to visit, and you sort of do some of that too. And Donnie would come home and obviously help, especially when Liam was like little, but yeah, it's a totally different experience, I think, having a baby um with someone who is gone out of the house, and they'll go on a 10-day road trip and they're not there, and like they come home and like they have to relearn what it's like to like be dad because they've been gone for all that time. And you're like, yeah, we've been teething and figuring out bottles and and it's like you're then
Hmm.
showing them what you've been doing for the last 2 weeks, and it's like, oh yeah, this is brand new territory. um
Hmm.
but yeah, I really do. I think it's like I feel like if you talk to any baseball wife who's done that and had babies in the season, they would be like, oh yeah, I just survived, man. I just survived.
You do. You
And you just
do.
ask for help where you can, if you can, and otherwise you just figure it out. You just make it happen. You just, you know,
Do you
make
get
it
that
one by
question?
one.
Yeah. Do you get that question? How do you do it?
Oh yeah.
I don't
And
know
I
how
think
you do it. I hear that
yes, it
all
is.
the
I
time.
think that is the phrase that I've heard the most is, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how you do it. That's crazy. Like you're a super
Mm-hmm.
mom. And it's like, people are just wanting to connect, right? Like we're humans just
Yeah.
connect to
Or
each
just
other.
recognize
Yeah,
the level at which you have to take care of the
yeah.
world.
I think it's their way of saying, like, it's their way of putting themselves in your shoes and being like, whoa, I could never
Mm-hmm.
do that. And then you look at them and you're like, but you would.
Mm. You could,
Would.
yeah. You just
Because it's
do
your,
it.
yeah, like you just, like that baby's sitting on the floor looking at you and no one else is there. Like you're not,
Mm-hmm.
you figure it out. Like you
Mm-hmm.
just move and you just go do it. And so, um, I think that it's like, I don't necessarily want credit for like doing it because like obviously that like I had to like that was what I was going to do as a mom. But yeah, I think it's just people's way of trying to relate. um
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, you just sort of in the early days it was like I just sort of like made one decision at a time. They weren't always right, but I just did the best that I could. As my kids
Yeah.
got older, um it got easier to like figure it out. And obviously the more years that I had in baseball, it wasn't necessarily more stable, but I was able to sort of be like, okay, we've been here before, we've been sent down, we've been traded. um I've had the phone call where it's like I got called up, I have to be at the, I'm flying out tomorrow or I'm flying out tonight or whatever. And you have to pack up an apartment and you have to load up a car, sometimes with dogs in tow, and you gotta go, you gotta drive, and 15-hour drive to wherever the next place is. And you just sort of get good at being simple, like keeping your household simple. I've learned how to pack a tote bin like real well. um and you just sort of like have this strategy of like, okay, one room down, pack that room, go to the next room, and it's like you just sort of navigate it as best you can in the most organized way possible. I have a very analytical, organized brain, and so I think that helped me. um some of those times where I wanted to just like sit on the floor and cry.
And
um
be a human being.
yeah, and well, and I will say I kind of suffer from not being like trying not to be human.
Mhm.
I think that's a byproduct of baseball life where I'm like, nope, we're just going to take the emotion right out of it because that's easier. um but yeah, you just sort of take it piece by piece and do what you got to do. And I think unfortunately that does mean that you don't necessarily take care of yourself as well as you could or should, um because there's so many pieces and people relying on you to get it done.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I can definitely say with confidence that I did not always probably take care of me.
Yeah.
um
That happens a lot. And I gotta say, I was really bad at asking for help. It sounds like you were a little better at that than I was, but
I mean, I
do
don't
you
know if I was
remember?
good at it, but
Well, you have to. I mean, you get to a point, like you said, you're in survival mode. You're getting through it and you do what you need to do. And oftentimes it's about asking for help because you just don't have a lot of options, and you reach out for who you can reach out to. I've done so many things wrong, I feel like, and that's how I figured out how to do anything differently, or right, I should say,
yeah.
for me. Like, I didn't figure out until I was already coaching how to better manage myself during a season, because like you, I got really good at taking care of all the things. Granted,
Mhm.
I didn't have to pack up as much as you did, and I love that you're such a pro. You can totally teach people how to not only pack but travel. I mean, we could do a whole other episode on traveling,
Right.
but especially with kids. But getting to a point where you realize, okay, I'm good at all the things that need to be done, that analytical stuff, that, okay, we have to pack. We pack, like the very obvious
Yeah,
things.
making the lists and doing the things. Yeah.
Yeah, making the list. Okay, and the kids need this. Let's take care of their needs. Like, this is
Right.
what moms do. We're supposed to take care of everybody's needs. So, like you said, it was easy to let your needs go
Mhm.
to the bottom of the list. So, do you remember? I mean, now that you're a little more staying put, do you remember a moment where you realized, okay, I think I probably should go in and pay a little more attention to myself?
I don't know that came until he had retired from playing. I think it took until he retired from playing and me sort of being a little more stable, which mind you, he retired from playing and within 6 months was coaching, which is the same exact lifestyle. You're just a coach now and you make less money. A little more stable that you're not moving around like during the season, but
Mhm.
season to season, it could be a different place. But yeah, I don't think it really dawned on me or like occurred to me that I needed to go inward and figure it out until after he retired, because there was no time to. I had no ability to even like think about that. And truthfully, I was young. I mean, we got married when I was a month from 21, and he retired. I was 30 when he retired. I mean, I
Which we could
spent
pretend was last year.
yeah, that'd be nice. I spent well from I guess from 18, but so 12 years doing this, and I really truly don't believe that it occurred to me until I was 30 that it was like, whoa, you better sit down and figure yourself out. Not thought about yourself for your entire 20s, which is kind of sad to think about, really. I also had a baby at 30, our second. I just spent all of those years going through the motions, doing what needed to be done. And then when he retired and we had our second, and I was like sort of home a little more, I think I realized finally, like, okay, if you don't take care of yourself, this is going to be a struggle. And it wasn't like he was home at that point anyway. And so I had not only a 5-year-old, but an infant, and he was going to go into a brand new coaching scenario. So I think that's the point when it finally like occurred to me, like, you've got to start doing some things for yourself. I ended up starting therapy and, really starting to pay better attention to the things that I needed, maybe a little too late, but the things that I needed to work on for me so that I could still be there to take care of everybody else.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, and that whole uh, silly but very real concept of put your face mask on first before you help others.
Right.
I'm constantly trying to prove that because it is true. When you, for me, sleep was the thing I lost the most becoming a mom. And until I could get that figured out, I just never felt like I was seeing things clearly. I couldn't function properly.
Right.
But for example, just being able to take care of me first, you don't even think of that as a concept. When we first
Mhm.
moved out here and I stopped working for the first time, I thought everything was about my husband and the baby, and that was it. It was like, take
Right.
care of everyone else, take care of everyone's needs, and then I'll figure mine out later. And
Right.
it was doing that the wrong way for so long. I call it the wrong way. I it was like, I don't know when, I can't put my finger on it exactly, but I remember feeling like, "Whoa, what am I doing?" So now, I think, and I'm gonna ask you about how you would give advice to somebody, because now I think if I met me when I first moved here, I would be like, listen, you're gonna screw things up for yourself. So let me help you not do that, because you need sleep, you need exercise, like all the things that I know now that I need to feel like a functioning human being. I wish I could have gifted that to myself back when I didn't even know who the hell I was. I thought I was supposed to just serve everybody else. And
Right.
granted, I still operate in service, but it's different. It's
Yeah. It's like it came from my upbringing, I think, too. Like, I feel like our age range, that's sort of how we were raised, is like you do everything for everybody else and you don't do anything for yourself.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think if I could go back, or if I could tell someone doing it now, I mean, it's tough because it's like, look, you're thrust into this situation where you have nobody. And they're gone and they're busy, and you can't call them and be like, oh, you're at the field, come help, like they can't come help you. Their
Mhm.
baseball is like, it's very cutthroat, and it's very, you know, like what are you going to do for me today kind of thing, and they're stressed out about it, and they're trying to make their dreams come true. And so you can't, you know, it's not that you can't rely on them, but it's like you can't call them in the middle of the day and be like, baby's crying, I don't know what to do. So i
Yeah.
think I think the, it's tough because it's like you won't necessarily always have a support system, but the best you can do is find girls that you can, reach out to. Find someone on the team that you can be like, look, I just need someone to vent to. I need someone to call if, I need 15 minutes to myself to go take a shower. If I, need to run to the grocery store. Like you have to get some people around you if you can. If you have family that can come help, that's obviously great. I think it's mostly just relying on community if you have it. And usually there's somebody, there's always someone to, that you can reach out to. But at the end of the day, I think you have to prioritize yourself. You have to make a plan of how you're going to do that. And if that means that you are getting the things done, putting the baby down and taking 10 minutes to yourself, or, getting the baby down for the night or the kids down for the night, and taking that time to really relax and figure out what it is that you need to recharge. That's super important. And I think, sometimes it's easier said than done, depending on the scenario you're in or the stage of life that you're in. I I think it's important to spend the time that you do have when your partner is there to, reconnect and communicate and figure out how to bring them in and let them see what you're doing, and let them understand, what your days are like. Um and hopefully then you guys can communicate and have opportunities for them to help you. And I think that definitely could, alleviate some of the stress and chaos. It's during the season that's always tough because they're exhausted, and they've been at the field for 18 hours a day or whatever,
Yeah. And
or
it's the
double
in and
header or
out.
something crazy.
Yeah.
Or they're traveling on red eye flights, and it's
Mhm.
just insane scheduling. But yeah, I think communication is huge, and I think letting that person in to see what you're going through, and kind of saying, hey, like, yeah, you're busy, but like I need support also. I think that makes a huge difference, in your partner also. um but yeah, I just gotta prioritize yourself. And we've with OBL, I've had a lot of girls reach out, asking lots of different things about baseball life. And sometimes it's like they're navigating it with kids, and sometimes they're like just getting into it. And I think some of the advice that I've given the most to those girls has been, basically just like, don't lose yourself in the game. Don't don't let the game consume you so much that you give up everything about yourself, because it's amazing. It's an amazing life. But also, like, it ends, and you don't want to be so wrapped up in it and so, like, overpowered by it that you don't even know who you are when it's over. Um, so I think that, it's just about priorities, and making the best decision you can for the stage that you're in. But definitely keeping something for yourself too, I think, is important, whether you have kids or not. um, Keeping something sacred for yourself, I think, is makes a big difference.
Yeah. You need your identity, and it's easy to toss it aside when you have to show up so
Yeah.
much for everybody.
Yes.
That's really, really good advice.
Well, and I
And
think that's relevant in any industry too. Like, I don't even think it's
yeah.
baseball life. I mean, I think it's anything. It's, and I'm sure
Mhm.
you can relate to this too, like with Jeff's, trajectory with broadcasting. It's, or anybody. I mean, it doesn't even matter. It's like you're in a partnership with somebody, and they obviously have goals, and they want to be successful, and they have a job, and you can't become them, and you can't let your whole life revolve around them. Obviously, you want to support your partner, and you want to function together. But I think that it's a lot easier for women to sort of like throw themselves away, um, especially when there's kids involved. So I think
Mhm.
it's just holding on. It's holding on to that piece of yourself, and obviously, hopefully, you've got a partner that's wants to see you grow and do well, and be successful in your own right. So
Mhm. Yeah, that's big. I will say I completely lost who I was when we moved to Milwaukee because and I remember hearing myself say like, "Oh yeah, it's just, it's Jeff's world. I'm just here." And I used to say it jokingly, but it was really quite sad when I
Yeah.
really thought about it. And so kind of slowly creeping back to me, it was a journey because I had to figure out who I was now. I felt like before baseball, like there's BC and AD and all that. We're like before baseball, after baseball, or
Yeah.
before
Oh,
baseball,
absolutely.
during,
Yeah.
right? Like I give so much credit to Jeff for always being supportive of whatever I felt like I needed to do, but for a long time I didn't even know what that was. From doing the mom thing to becoming a coach, I felt like not until I became a coach did I find me again. And I also was really bad at asking for help. And now if anyone comes to me, those are the two things I tell people now is A, ask for help, find your people. And like you said, don't lose yourself. And if you do, make it a priority to find her again or
Hmm.
whatever the case is, like, find
Yeah.
yourself again, it matters.
Yeah. I think I spent 5 years after he retired and was coaching where I just was like, okay, just gonna go to therapy and we're just gonna figure out who I am because I spent my 20s not really paying attention to who I was. My 20s were like consumed with just like babies and travel
Mhm,
and baseball.
mhm.
And you gotta get back to you a little bit. So
Alright, so I love this debate, and I don't know if it's much of a debate anymore, but it's more relevant, is this solo mom versus a single mom. When people understand the kind of life we live, and granted, Jeff is in and out, he's home more than Donnie is, but it still feels like, there's such a significant absence. So when I tell people about our lifestyle, I've heard moms and single moms and friends of mine who are single moms say, "You're like a single mom." And my first reaction is to argue with that and say, "Well, no, I'm not like a single mom. I'm a solo mom a lot, but this concept comes up." So what's your take?
well, I mean, obviously, yeah, if you're a single parent, I was raised by a single mom. If you're a single mom that doesn't have a partner and doesn't have, you know, somebody who's coming who's there with you 50-50, even if it's not 50-50, but somebody who's there, as a partner. Um, that's different, right? Than like being a parent who has a partner, but the partner just isn't there all the time. So that's the obvious, like it is different when you can call your partner and say like, yeah, here's what we've been through for the day or whatever. Or they're coming home at night even if they're gone all day long. That's a completely different um scenario than somebody who truly is doing it by themselves, even if they're, like it's an every other weekend situation or they're co-parenting or something like that. So I guess there are huge similarities in that a lot of times you are by yourself and you are making decisions by yourself and you are sometimes raising those kids by yourself because they can't be there for everything and they miss a lot. But it's it's not as if I couldn't have, like I didn't have somebody there at various points. And in the off season, they're home in the off season and you get that time back a lot of, during that time. So, I think it is very similar in the sense that you're not always going to have somebody there to, you know, make you feel 1,000% confident in what you're doing all the time if they're, out traveling, whatever. Um, but I guess it's not the same in the sense that like I had somebody that I could at least, you know, sort of rely on at various points during the day and also in the off seasons like he was there to be dad.
As far as the parenting goes, we're partners, but I'm the consistent.
Yeah, so
So,
that I guess that's the concept of like a default parent, right? Like I'm the
mhm.
default parent. I'm the parent that basically, you know, the primary parent that's going to be making the decisions, making the plans, making the calls for things, um, because somebody has to be. And if he's not available, like obviously that's going to be me. Um, and I think in a single mom situation, there is no default parent. Like, you just are the parent, in that case. Or if you have a co-parent, then maybe it's similar in that sense. I think the biggest difference for me, and I was actually just having this conversation with my mom the other day, because my mom was a single mom, but she had every other weekend. Like, I went to my dad's every other weekend. And I said something to my mom the other day about, like, I'm burnt out. Like, I need a break. I need some time away. I need to go, find something to do that has nothing to do with my kids. And she was like, "Oh, I remember those days where I just needed to, like, have some time away." And I said, "Yeah, and you got it. Every other weekend, I went to dad's and you got it." And I think that is one of the biggest um things, if that's the situation where you do have a co-parent that takes your kids, at some time or whatever, and you get that break. Doesn't make it easier by any stretch, but I'm just, you know, making that correlation that baseball moms don't get every other weekend.
Mm-mm,
Like,
mm-mm.
we're just in it every single day. And there is no, like, oh, you're going to your dad's this weekend. It's like, it's sometimes it does feel a little bit like being divorced without actually being divorced. But you don't get the break from your kids, and I don't want it to sound bad. It's not like we're trying to get rid of them, but
But it is constant, but
yeah,
all the more reason why you have to look out for yourself, however that looks for you. So you're not getting to that point at the end of like a 2-week stretch or a 10-day road trip and think, "Oh my God, like where am I?
yeah,
What am I doing? I don't know what I've eaten. I don't know what I've done
yeah.
with myself or how much I've slept."
And a
It's
lot of
all
times
the
that
more
would
reason.
happen. They would come home after a 10-day, like, Donnie would come home after a 10-day road trip, and I'd be like, "Here you go."
Yeah.
Just
Here's your
stand there.
babies.
I'd be like,
I need a
"Here's
bath.
your 3-year-old. I'm out." And I
I
would,
need a
go
nap.
get a pedicure and a coffee and, do the best that I could to sort of
Mhm.
come back, to it. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's definitely, it has its similarities to single parents. And it's but I guess to respect them, I'm sure a lot of them can't call their partner or call somebody, or expect to have somebody come home, even if they're gone for a 12-day spurt.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's definitely not comparable in that regard. But
You do a lot on your own, that's for sure. One of the reasons why I sought out a therapist is so I could transition in and out of baseball season. And I would say things like, I'm on my own, I'm solo parenting, I'm like a single mom. I would say things to my therapist and she would cut me off and say, "No, you're not. You do
right,
things on your own, but you're still partners, you're still parenting partners." So she would always have to help my brain get on board with, even though I'm doing the physical in-person stuff, I still am allowed to rely on my partner however I possibly can.
yeah,
It's definitely a different situation, but as long as we're communicating, he can enter back into their world and
right.
know what's going on. And
And they want
we
to. They want
they
to.
do. Oh,
I think it
yeah.
does. It becomes this thing though where you do take over and you just sort of say, "Oh, I'm just going to do this because, like,
Well,
there's."
yeah, and you kinda yeah, you have to so much, it's like second
But yeah,
nature.
but it is important to not do that.
Mhm, mhm.
And
Well,
let them come back, because they are,
le
they are
come
the other
be
parent. They are the co-parent.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it is tough. You do sort of, like, you just go into this, like, weird tunnel vision survival mode. You
Mhm.
just start doing it.
You do, and the default parent, that's really how it goes.
Mhm.
And I used to rely on the off season, and I can't really rely on that anymore. Jeff, working all year like he does in other sports, and so we've really had to be so intentional about how he, comes in and, takes the kids to school whenever he's home or takes them to their practices or is just involved. So I just try and get him as involved as I possibly can, which of course then gives me a break, which
Right,
we all need.
right.
Okay, so tell me like some of your best tricks to taking care of yourself now during baseball season. Like, what are your go-tos, some things you put into action or into the
I mean,
system?
yeah, I mean, with like working, I'm working a lot. I definitely have a routine in the morning. So it's like getting up consistently before my kids, and I am not someone who wants to get up like an hour or two before my kids. I'm talking like a half an hour. So we're doing like a half an hour early. I get up, I at least can like let the dogs out, get, a lunch made, get myself together before I wake them up. And so I think that's pretty key, is having at least a little bit of a routine before they get up. And then after I come home from work, I am not afraid to hand my kids an iPad and say, I'm going to take a bath. I think that that's gotten me through more, you know, exhaustive days than anything, is just saying a little screen time never hurt anybody. And, just taking 45 minutes to myself to go take a bath and wash my hair and wash my face, which there you go, washing your face again.
Full circle.
Um, full circle. But yeah, I think it's routine, it's consistency, and having activities for them too. Like, I just having them scheduled to do things, so that if I can drop them off at gymnastics and a guitar lesson, and I can have, an hour to run to Target, like that's important. It's not much, but it's something. And then, I do rely on my family. Having my mom come give me a day here and there when she has the ability to, and so that's been a big help also. But yeah, I think it's just basically not feeling that guilt of, if I need to come home after work and I need them to like go in their rooms and play by themselves. Or, I mean, obviously the 13-year-old doesn't, that's not a problem. He can handle himself. But I just don't feel guilt, I guess, anymore about taking an hour to myself, or setting a routine for myself to make sure that I'm feeling okay before they're awake, or before we have to run around and do all of their things. So consistency, I guess, and just letting myself off the hook and not giving into that like mom guilt for taking an hour that I'm not entertaining the 7-year-old, or cheating at dinner and making something super easy so that I can have, some extra time to myself. And I feel like I do a lot of revenge, like, they call it like revenge time or whatever. Like, the kids go to bed and I'll stay up for 4 hours just scrolling Instagram. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of that
Grabbing
going
some
on
you
too.
time.
Yeah. There's a little bit
Yeah.
of that going on too, which maybe is not the greatest, but whatever. I mean, you do what you got to do.
Well, but you struck something that I hear all the time whenever, especially with clients, and I'm pushing them to take better care of themselves, however that looks. Guilt is like the number one thing I hear all the time. Well, I
Yeah.
would love to do this, but then I'll feel bad. And I get that. I've been there and I still have moments like that. But the second you can decide there's something I need, period. No guilt
Yeah.
needed. Nothing needs to change your mind about tending to that need. That is huge in being able to not only do the things you need to do, but to stay consistent like you've been able to do. That's
Yeah,
big.
I just, yeah, I think I just hit a point where I thought, okay, me feeling guilty about not doing something for them is just kind of silly, considering, you know, the less I do for myself, the, you know, worse it is for them, probably, because I'm probably short-tempered and don't have the patience, and just can't, now I'm not probably giving my best self anyway. So I think I learned, in my 30s to say, okay, they're old enough now. And this is, you gotta take it all with a grain of salt, because when you've got little kids, it's tough to even, they can't understand that you need a second to yourself. But now that my kids are
Hmm.
a little older, I think I've gotten so much better at saying, this is okay. Like, they're okay. They can entertain themselves for a minute, or they can, take this time to go watch a show or a movie or whatever. And I can, and go do this thing for myself, so that I'm not burning the candle at both ends and losing my shit, as we say,
Hmm. Yeah,
um, later
fair.
on in the day. So yeah, I think it's just about, I don't know, letting it go, letting go. You gotta do you a little bit too, or else your kids are gonna be like, Mom, what is
Mm.
wrong with you?
Yep. Better for you is better for them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Well, if I've learned something from our conversation, and granted, we're friends and we have history at this point, but the fact is, letting go and not taking care of yourself just doesn't work. and it's not fun. And it is possible, even without guilt, even when you're in the thick of it, to take care of yourself. And that really, would you say it makes things better?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's not even, I don't even know if it's a question if it makes things better. I think you truly do get to a breaking point where you're like, oh yeah, this has to happen. Yeah, get good at it now. Get good at it now. Stop feeling guilty.
Stop feeling guilty. Is that your final piece of advice? Take care of you and don't feel guilty.
Probably.
Hey, that's
Yeah.
pretty profound. I'm sure someone listening right now will think, gosh, that's just what I needed to hear.
No guilt. We don't do guilt anymore. No more mom guilt. No more. Yeah, no, it's such a real thing though. I hear about it all the time.
Yeah.
Constant mom guilt. But we're gonna put
Yeah.
that away. 2024 says no more mom guilt.
No more mom guilt. I love that. No matter what kind of life you live. Well, okay. So whoever is really resonating with this, it's not just someone who's married to someone in the baseball life. You can apply these kinds of things to anywhere. And even if you're married to someone who's around all the time, you can still feel like a solo parent, and it's hard. So moms and busy lives and trying to figure out how to take care of yourself no matter what is super important and not always easy to do, but no guilt needed. Paige, thanks for the insights and the stories.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun.
Paige Murphy is a co-creator of the organization called Our Baseball Life that connects resources to the professional baseball community. To learn more, visit Our Baseball Life on Instagram. Thank you for listening to Needy and Normal. Please take a moment to leave me a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. For information about coaching, visit ablifecoaching.com.